I'm gonna make music with a Wii balance board.
Okay.
Ding! I got a board, and now I'm just waiting for a package to arrive. In this video, I have a new prototype by Swamp Flux in the case, and I'm going to talk about a couple things using that module. First thing, CV control using my body. That's right, I'm going to move my body around, and that's going to create CV for my case. Second, organic loopable CV recording, because that's this module's superpower. And the third thing, we're going to dip our toes a little bit into the development process. I reached out to Wray from Swamp Flux just for a little chat. This module being a prototype really fascinated me because it just goes to show all these modules we mess with and love, they started as a little idea, something on a scrap of paper, but someone decided to take that idea and make it into a physical thing. This prototype we're talking about is called the Biggest Foot. It's Swamp Flux's first module, and it interfaces with a Wii balance board. Do you remember those things? I honestly didn't know a ton about this module before I got it. I was just kind of avoiding spoilers the way that I only watch half of movie trailers. Anybody else do that? I also wanted to give my feedback to Swamp Flux before I poured over any manuals or anything like that, which is what I usually do. Just after playing around with this thing for a little bit, it's way more compelling than I thought. Any music you've heard so far is being modulated by this. Overall, it's just really lively, really responsive and organic in terms of the way that you use it to modulate things. You basically get to move your body around and control 9 different related outputs of modulation. And then add that into your patches and do whatever you want to do with CV. I kind of got to think about this module as a 2D or maybe even a 3D modulation source. That'll make a little bit more sense when we get into the module. Oh yeah, this is a CV recorder. All those 9 outs, you can record them and play them back and change the speeds. Let's get over to the case and I'll explain the module. Oh, I guess before I do that, I need to connect it to the Wii balance board. I didn't really know what the setup sequence was. All I knew is that I needed to press the red button. So I powered on the case, saw this little animation come up on the screen. Then I went back over to the board, opened up the battery compartment, and added some batteries. Then I pressed the little red button. I saw the animation screen change to this little line, so I figured we were good to go. I flipped it back over, put it somewhere kind of even. I guess that's what the line meant. Then I just stepped on. The animation changed to this little sparkly one. I figured that was calibrating. Then a cluster of dots appeared. That's it. As I moved around, the movements just followed me. I actually started moving quite a bit just to get this little dot moving around immediately. You see the potential, right? So let me show you the module this way. So we've got the Biggest Foot all connected up. Something to note, this is very much a prototype panel and not how the final unit will look. The placement of everything is like final, but labeling and design of the actual panel will change. We've got 9 outputs up here, this little screen that indicates where my weight kind of is on the balance board. So as I shift around, you'll notice that it follows my movements. Then we've got this knob, has 2 functions because there's a shift functionality down here. Okay, the one without a shift is just sensitivity. So as I turn that down, you see how the sensitivity is less. As I turn that up, sensitivity is way more. So you can adjust that as you need. So it's basically setting your range or bounds in the XY. If I press shift down here, this is a slew, so that will slew the values coming in from the balance board. Apparently the output coming from the balance board is really noisy, so adding this slew really helps to even out some of the voltages coming out so that you're getting things that are a little bit more usable for modulation.
But if you want like that fast response, you can definitely get it by turning the slew down. I usually have it up to about, I don't know, around there, like 4 squares-ish. We have a reset. It allows you to trigger your sample again. So if you have recorded modulation, which this is a CV recorder, it will start playing back that sample again. Then we have a couple other buttons, a manual reset, and then we have a record button. So if I press that, it'll record what this modulation is, and then when it receives a reset, then it will play that modulation on all 9 of these outputs. And then we have 2 sliders. So this one right here, this basically is a transport control. So stop is way at the bottom. We've got like play somewhere in the middle, and then kind of like fast forward. So this is basically the speed, your modulation is all playing back.
And this right here is trim. It controls the start point of the sample.
Let's just jump into making some sounds because it'll make way more sense. Okay, so we've got a signal coming in from pizza. We have ghost in here just so it's not a dry signal. Let's get that out of here. Let's just modulate pizza, right? So let's take this value right here in center, plug that into the FM. Here, if I plug it in over here, that FM is really going for it. Okay. Say I change to this. This is the folder. A little bit of a smoother kind of a signal. So you can notice as I move around and I get closer to that corner, and this kind of screen is matching up with the location that I have on here. It's changing the folder. What if I chose this corner and I did the FM? Right? Just so we're not just listening to one note, I'm just gonna patch through an ARP here on channel 2. So we've got a pulse going in, triggering this ARP. So as you can see, as I'm moving around and those 2 values are changing, we're getting a lot of movement, a lot of sound variation. Let's add in the octave oscillator as well. And I'll patch that in to here. So we have that. And that's going to create a little bit of bass. And then we might as well modulate the shape as well, right? And then note, as I step off the board, nothing, right? So the interesting thing there is, say if I took the center out and I plugged that output into these 2 VCAs on Veils. And what that means is that if I'm not on it, it's at 0. If I step on it, then the VCA comes alive. So you can really control your patch that way. Let's get into recording. I basically have this pulse multed going now into the steppy. So I'm going to be able to control how often this thing resets. Okay, I'm going to record it now. Press record again to stop the recording. I need to send something to the reset in order to get it to go. So we'll notice when this comes up, it's gonna play back the sample. Oh, it's set to stop, so I've gotta set the transport up a little bit. And that's not me. That's completely the biggest foot and what is recorded there. Let's mess with the modulation a little bit more with this playback. So we can change the speed of the playback. So that's the speed, it can be really, really fast. And then this is the start point. So if we go all the way to the bottom, it's gonna go right to the start of that sample. We can play it back really, really slow. Something that I really like to modulate with this is delay, actually. If we clock the delay on Ghost, let's record a fresh sample. You just press record again. Let's take channel B of Steppy. Gonna send this out to the trig. So we're getting sample and hold, just random values. Let's attenuate that value. And let's toss that into the transpose of the art. Okay, it's transposing pre-quantizer. Let's change this and transpose. So let's make it come from the biggest foot. Say if we made it go slower. Maybe we can change the length of this so that it's phasing with that other reset. I think that scratches the surface as to like why this is so fun and why you might want 9 modulation sources that are all kind of interconnected. As you're watching this, you're probably thinking, oh, that is very silly. But there's something about being able to move with your synth, like move with the music, like as you want something like great to happen, you can actually make those large movements with your body. And that is the superpower of this module. It's very surprising as to how this idea pulls together something greater than the sum of its parts. Also, you should really note, there isn't really another modulation source like this. Even joysticks do XY. Nothing really does 9 outputs that are all pressure sensitive. The closest thing might be something like a pressure pad. I was chatting with Wray, and that was sort of the mention in terms of some of the inspiration for this. Yeah, like Buchla stuff. So again, Buchla giving us lots of gifts. But yeah, I'm gonna go pick up my kids.
So how do I get a hold of this module anyway? I think Swamp Flux posted on their Instagram that they had a prototype up for grabs. I might have commented, or maybe I saw it from someone else's feed. I can't remember, but somehow we crossed paths. I think I got a DM asking what I would do with a module like that. I think I answered I would do something rhythmic and melodic and, I don't know, probably throw my kids on there too, which I did. I heard back that the module was going to be sent to me and I was pretty stoked. So I'd get a Rev 2 prototype and then I could send feedback and ask any questions that I had. So kind of beta testing, but I didn't go over every little detail. I more so just approached it like getting a module and seeing what it could do for me, all without a manual. For transparency, I didn't owe a video or any sort of content in return. Of course, I figured I'd do a video anyway because they're pretty fun to make and I don't know, I figure you like watching them. It's been really cool to see a little bit of the behind the scenes as the panel gets finished up and features get refined. Yeah, a ton of work has gone into this thing. I'm not getting paid for this video and I don't have any shiny new modules waiting for me on the other side, as far as I know. I'm just embracing the spirit of eurorack, I guess, and I'm really excited about this stuff. Me and my long explanations. Sorry. Before we continue, if you're liking the video, please consider liking and subscribing down below. It'll give you a chance to see what I do next. I recently had a job change and have more time to spend on these videos, so I'm excited about that. If you really wanted to, I just started a Patreon. There's like a $2 tier. You can check that out and see if you would want to support me that way too. Maybe I'll put some behind the scenes stuff as I'm working on videos up there. And back to the biggest foot. This thing is great. I knew I was low on modulation within my 4U case. I've looked at a bunch, the Dope for Quad LFO, of course AUX, the CCTV Coven LFO, Canada represent, a couple knob recorders and Gliss, dual envelopes like Delta V, and of course Bostel's new Neolux. I'm really interested in that one. I feel like it would pair really well with this module. I just haven't made a purchase of any of them yet. What's clear to me is that I really needed a modulation source. Sometimes I use Baker, but often it's being used for envelopes. I can only fit so much in the 4U also. I'd say the biggest foot has opened up a new level of control and playability. It brings a lot of patches to life, both with the live kind of playing and moving around, and then the recorded CV being able to adjust speeds and manipulate it. You can make melodies, a whole bunch of different feelings in terms of the way your modulation works. I love modules like this that allow you to really get in there and mess with stuff and just continue to evolve what you're working on. I still need to check out the cycling mode and I want to see how fast it can retrigger. It'd be cool if I could sort of draw waveforms with this thing. One other cool thing about this module, it's going to save this from the landfill. I'm gonna keep this. I have to say that as a prototype especially, this module has exceeded my expectations. I was definitely not expecting to get something as finished as this was and playable. So it's been a pretty nice experience. Thanks again to Swamp Flux for letting me test this out. Of course, it being a prototype, there are some quirks. The panel isn't quite in final form. They're working on it though, and I think they're hoping to use an aluminum panel for the final, so looking forward to see that coming out. Oh, and I also hear there's gonna be some black panels, so that's probably what I'd pick. But in terms of functions, with the plastic panel, not final parts, it's pretty great. It works great. One thing that was happening from my unit was there's some like popping or glitches that sort of happen, mainly in live mode. As you're moving around, you might hear little parts of the signal go like really, really high. These are just really fast, high CV values because the rate that the CV is refreshing is really, really fast. This might just be a case on my board because it was hand reworked and then shipped to Canada. Might have got damaged in the shipping. It might be because the board that I have is not quite level or is particularly noisy. Apparently the balance boards are pretty noisy in terms of signal anyway, and it might also be because I have a large cluster of digital modules all clumped together. I didn't really figure it out, but it didn't really stop me from making whatever I wanted to with it, and I imagine if it's a consistent problem, it'll get some attention. But yeah, I was mainly in live mode and playback of the recorded stuff is pretty clean. Oh, also, totally not on Swamp Flux, but my balance board squeaks a little bit. I imagine the retro gamers have you covered on this if you need that fixed. Even though Swamp Flux was saying the CV wasn't super precise, so not ideal for pitch sequencing, using some sample and hold, I was able to make it into a melody generator of sorts. It's really fun that way. But for me, I want to pitch sequence with almost anything. Oh, fun fact too, the whole Z-axis thing, if you were to bounce up and down on the board, you would notice that the highest value of CV that you're getting is actually higher than if you were just standing on the board. So it's actually getting the input of your pressure in. That's just really cool. And it gives you a sense of how much input you're getting from the balance board. Really, really neat. Over the time messing with the module, I figured it would be fun to reach out to Wray, who made the module. And yeah, I just figured it would be fun to talk with the person that like brought this idea into fruition and made this physical thing that I was messing with. Anyway, here's a clip. Don't mind the terribly awkward interviewing. I'm no podcast host.
But then the Raspberry Pi became almost impossible to get your hands on.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to completely pivot, actually learn electronics for the next 5 years or something.
So you learned electronics out of the beginnings of this project?
Out of the beginning of like, yeah, I learned electronics as like my first module idea. Hey, I should do that and make a company, which was called Micro Rave. And terrible name, by the way. Really bad SEO on Micro Rave. Because people mishear you.
Mm-hmm.
And you would never guess that there was still a W in the middle.
Right.
But anyway, it was born out of failure. So I had like eight or nine different module ideas up to that point, and I started getting frustrated in like 2019, 2020, with like, you know what? I have like 3 modules, and I really should just focus on. I'll just bounce between 3, and I'll just keep them like going, and one of them I just absolutely have to finish. And I kept like spiraling, like not finishing any of them.
Yeah.
And I was like, I should not do any of these because they're clearly too complicated. I'll pick like the easiest thing possible. You know, it's dead simple. Just how about I just do that balance board thing? Because I bet I could finish that really fast. It's been a year since then. The first prototype I got done in like a week, just running on the computer. And pretty much everything beyond that were like my friends on Discord.
Right.
Because we were chatting like almost every single day, and they really pushed me to be like, keep going. Or like, share your screen and I'll tell you what's wrong with your circuit. Share your screen and I'll tell you which part you should actually be buying.
Mm-hmm.
Share your screen and or like give me the file and I'll fix it for you and you can watch. Like if it wasn't for that kind of guidance and mentorship, which I give a lot of credit to This Is Not Rocket Science, shout out. They really helped. And then my buddy Wray, who's also launching his own thing called Cray Space. But and a bunch of other guys too. Like it's become a really good community effort, me starting the business. Like it definitely wasn't all me.
That was the interview. I thought that we were only going to chat for about 15 minutes, but we chatted for about an hour. If you're interested in seeing that interview, definitely let me know. Thank you, Wray, for chatting with me. I made so many patches with this thing. Here's a couple more. This is like the first kind of jam that I'm recording using this thing. I'm gonna step on and we'll notice a bunch of things are gonna change. So first of all, the center modulation point is going to, what's it going to? It's VCAing the drums. So they're getting like louder as I'm stepping on the board. Other thing that's happening, Euclidean beats on the kick drum. So all the way to the left, it's more like slow and chill, and to the right. Right? If I go up, it's gonna pitch everything up with the transpose on the barred quartet.
I go to the top right, it's the most kick drum. It's also modulating the amount of events that are going on for this main synth line. So consistent to the left, look at this light here. And if we go to the right, it's spreading out, right? And I have it going to distortion. You can see how like rhythmic, just like rocking back and forth is. I'm gonna crank the delay a little bit. And this is coming from this modulation point down here. The other thing we can do is record. Let's try it. Let's see, it's resetting over here with the divide by. Let's do divide by 4. We can adjust the speed right here. It's going wild. Want to go back to live, we just press shift and this. Let's go back over this. Step off.
Okay, I just basically threw this patch together. There's 3 voices, pizza, O-Coast, and MCO all going in to veils. Those are going out to carbon. Carbon is being modulated by this envelope. The biggest foot, I just kind of like threw it at a couple different things, and it is going out, as you can see, into 3x MIA so it can get some attenuation and offset. And then the 2 main things it's modulating here are the envelope on the O-Coast. So that's basically changing the length of the envelope and creating like a little bit of push-pull and rhythm with this melody. And the second thing is it's going to the transpose of the barred quartet. And effectively just changing the melody up and down, providing a lot of variety. Because the biggest foot can change in the length of the loop and where the loop starts and the speed of the loop, that can bring about a lot of melodic kind of differences. And because I'm also having that same modulation modulate the filter, it's just really, really fun. I have those three voices going back into Veils after Carbon and then into Mimeophone for effects. Drums, there's a simple sequence coming from Steppy and going into Rample just for kick and snare, and then that is being processed through Ghost. That idea that I use a lot of just kind of like molding and sculpting music very much applies to this module. It's very fun. And right now I just have some modulation recorded into it from like moving around on the board, and I'll use that primarily for this jam. Here we go. Let me bring in the synths. So lots of delay going on. So bring in drums. So you can hear the effect on this envelope here, right? There we can see that the transpose is on for this. So if I change this, short loops for resetting. Let's change to that. Being unaffected. I'm gonna jump in and record some. One here is the one that's controlling the envelope.
It's a very, very fun jam that's going on right now. I have very little modulation going on. I figured it would be really fun to put together a very playable patch and then add modulation after the fact and see just how much more we can pull from it using this organic kind of modulation that the Biggest Foot offers. In terms of what's going on, I have Veils doing mixing. We have a lead voice coming out from MCO through Carbon using Veils as a VCA. Baker is doing envelopes for that. That voice sounds like this. And that's ARP coming from Bard Quartet. Yeah, we have the envelope being controlled right here. So that's affecting everything, affecting both the filter and the VCA. Bard Quartet, we have harmonies set up, so doing different ARPs. Channel 2 of Veils is Pizza doing a bass line. It's being sleuthed through noise tools, post quantizer. So there's a trigger out going out every time that the note changes, and it's set up a little bit different, each of the harmony positions. But there's track and hold, kind of holding some of the notes in place for a little bit longer, creating a little bit more rhythmic interest for the bass line. But that's just the pizza. Trigger for the pizza is going in through the sync, and that is allowing us to do an envelope here. Cool. Channel 3 on Veils is just a hi-hat. The rhythmic kind of interest is being generated from Bard Quartet. Channel 3 of Bard Quartet is basically changing values and feeding that to the decay CV in of the Baker here. Right? A little bit more interest. Channel 4 on Veils is just drums. So that's mainly what's going on. How can we integrate the Biggest Foot here? Let's hear the main voice here. Okay. Woo. Okay, let's bring in the bass line. Drums. little bit. I need to trigger it somehow. Let's trigger it from the same thing that's starting off that hat. This light. Change the way that the modulation sounds just by changing the speed and the start point. Do you see just how like much more lively this patch is? There's just so much happening. I don't know. I think I love when music is like this. It's just very full. There's lots of stuff going on. Yeah, it's just very fun for me. I wonder. Wii Fit was never this fun.
I'm sure you've had enough of the long explanations. Let me condense this one down. The main thing in this patch is that it corresponds with stereo. The front left and right on the biggest foot are used to VCA left and right channels. Both the left and right channels are a mix of pizza and MCO. So if I lean left, you'll hear things more on the left, and if I lean right, you'll hear things more on the right. In a very loose sort of way because of the reverb and delay, of course. CV from the biggest foot is going to FM and shape on pizza, as well as modulating the length of the envelopes. Bard Quartet is doing its regular thing, plus CV is going to the pulses on Night Scallop. Clocking by Noise Tools, and Ghost is providing reverb and delay. Yeah, basically a much more chill patch. Enjoy. I'm gonna record this and then it's gonna start playing back when I come back to the modular. So here we go, record. And sitting. So yeah, if you're looking for some interesting modulation for your eurorack, maybe check out the Biggest Foot. They're expecting to launch quite soon, in March or April. And you can find out more about the module as it takes shape on their Instagram. That's at Swamp Flux. If there's any more important links, I'm going to put them up on screen right now. I'm looking forward to seeing this thing take final form. I'm sure it'll be pretty sweet. If you end up picking it up, definitely drop me a line and let me know how you're finding it. If you got to this point in the video, thanks for watching. And yeah, please consider liking and subscribing. Add any comments or questions down below. Again, if you really want, you can check out my Patreon. Just look under Turbo Tambourine. You should be able to find it. I don't know how the links work yet, but maybe I'll put that down in the description. Yeah, more videos to come. Cheers.